you are voluntarily giving up time to your adversary or the match for no more information that's going to make you more successful or more accurate. In this episode, we're going to be covering confirmation levels, shooting schemes, and in the tactical world, acceptable sight pictures. All right, guys, when we're referring to confirmation levels and shooting schemes, what we're referring to is the amount of information that we get from our red dot that gives us permission to press the trigger. There's going to be specific visual cues that you will utilize based on the difficulty of the target, the distance from the target, and your skill level. With playing with these shooting schemes, you will be able to introduce the gun faster into action and guarantee accountability. Confirmation levels are broken down into 4 visual cues. Traditionally, law enforcement is taught to shoot from one visual cue, and that is max information, stop dot. Every officer, when they're introduced to shooting in the academy, at least from my experience, they want to see a stopped dot in the intended hit zone to give them permission to press the trigger. Sometimes this may be necessary, but due to the circumstance, what's presented to us in real life, or due to the complexity or not that complex of a target, it doesn't necessarily require that much information from your dot to be accountable, right? And we're always looking to shoot sooner without sacrificing accuracy. Shooting schemes are going to get us shooting sooner, but still maintaining accountability. So at no point when I'm talking about these shooting schemes and how we introduce them, am I saying you can be less accurate? What I am introducing is that we don't need as much information as you're traditionally taught to maintain accountability, as long as we're paying attention to all the core principles that we've discussed in this last video series. The next confirmation level, down from a stop dot, is going to be a streaking dot. So what you will see from your red dot is not a planted dot. You will see a streak of a dot coming in. And like I said, depending on the distance from the target and the difficulty of the target, you might not need that much information to get effective hits on your target, whether it's an A zone or whether it's a human being in the vital area, right, to stop that threat. And I think we'll all agree, if we can start shooting sooner and still maintain accountability, that's going to be advantageous in a law enforcement lens. So you have stop dot, which is max information. Next down is streaking dot, streaking into your target, which will be the next layer of a little bit less information. From there, you just have a color change. What you're going to see is you're going to introduce the gun very fast, and you're just going to see a flash of color. So there's going to be no streak, there's going to be no shape of a dot, but what you will see is a flash of color in your desired hit zone, and that is the key. We don't want to see a stop dot or a streak or a flash of color just anywhere on the person or on the target. It needs to be in the particular area that we're trying to shoot, right? So when I see a flash of color in the A zone, depending on the difficulty of target, that might be enough information to get me start shooting. Now there's only going to be 2 areas where you're going to see confirmation level changes. That's on the entry into a target and in recoil. The entry into a target can look a couple different ways. That could be from the draw, entering into a target, or that can be exiting a target and entering into a target. That is going to require you to apply some type of confirmation level, like we talked about, based on the difficulty and distance of the target. The next layer, the least amount of information, which is a shooter scheme, and it's not kinesthetic and it's not point shooting, it is a confirmation level. It's just not used very often. But where this applies to law enforcement is, say, at a car stop, where the driver now meets the use of force, and we have to employ that weapon very quickly. How much information do we need to see from that gun to start shooting effective rounds, right? If I'm 4 yards in is roughly where I would utilize this. Just indexing the weapon and using the back plate or the optic is enough information for me to start shooting and putting effective rounds on my adversary or collecting points in a competition. Now, as I'm shooting, I continue to shoot through the shot string. I'm always looking to collect more information without slowing down my shot string. So just because I enter into a target at very low confirmation with backplating my gun, as the gun starts to fire and in recoil, I shouldn't be staying at that confirmation level. If you're doing it correctly, there's no way you should stay there. You should definitely get some type of information from the dot after the first or second shot, where you'll start to see a streaking pattern or a bouncing ball. All right, so all of this is just to get us shooting sooner while still maintaining accountability, which is going to help us get ahead of the power curve in a law enforcement setting, and then also help us in a competition setting to collect points sooner, because the whole name of the game is points divided by time. What you'll see here is we have 3 different target arrays set up. Their stage will be staged back here, but you'll be 5, 10, and 15 yards from 3 different targets. Our first target is going to be an open target, right? You're going to be standing 5 yards from it. That is not going to require a lot of information. So we will take that target at a flash of color. So I'm going to draw the gun, I'm going to enter into that target, and as soon as I see a flash of color in the A zone, that's going to give me permission to press the trigger. Now, regardless of the confirmation level, if you start changing and violating the principles of shooting, obviously the rounds will not be there. Now, when we're talking about using smaller amounts of information or confirmation levels, if you haven't done this before, that's going to make you slightly uncomfortable. When you're uncomfortable, you're going to be more likely to violate the core principles of shooting that we've covered in the two other episodes. So when we're assessing this and we're tying cause and effect, you need to ask yourself, is that not enough information for that difficulty of target? Or did that speed make me feel uncomfortable where I violated the shooting principles, right? Once you make that assessment, we have to attack the root cause of the problem. Most likely it's probably not the information, especially on these front 2 targets. It's going to be that speed is new to you and it's uncomfortable, and that is causing you to violate shooting principles. Now, the correction, as we did with the doubles, if we want to get comfortable at those speeds, we need to shoot at those speeds and with that amount of information. If shooting at a flash of color is causing me problems, well, the only way to fix it is to keep shooting at a flash of color, desensitizing myself to that visual cue, and teach myself not to change anything throughout the shot string. Hopefully that makes sense, but this is the way we need to look at training. We're not looking to dial it down when we make mistakes. We're looking to fix the root cause of the problem and attack it there. And then once we fix that, we're looking to constantly level it up. On the second target, you're going to see that we have a hostage target or a pseudo hostage target with half an A zone, right? So we have a target that will be 10 yards from. You'll only have half of the available A zone, so we've reduced the hit zone or the desired hit zone in half, and then we've added an extreme penalty to it, right? So in competition, if you shoot a no-shoot, that is going to be a 10-point penalty on top of you not having the round. So essentially it would be a 15-point swing, especially if you don't make it up, but we're not going to get too crazy into that. And in real life, that would be an innocent person, which is unacceptable, right? So we need to apply a little bit more confirmation due to the distance and difficulty and severity, risk versus reward of that target. So on that target, we're going to push ourselves to just shoot a streaking dot. So it'll look like a bouncing ball. It'll streak in, bang, recoil will happen, and then it'll bounce back in, and I'll send it on that streak back into the target. On your third target will be 15 yards from, and you can see we've made the no shoot even bigger, right? All you now have is available is a 6x6 head zone. If you put them in the credit card, great. I'm not too concerned about that right now. I just want you putting them in the head box. I'd prefer you don't shoot for the credit card because I believe you would slow down too much, and I don't want you over confirming. Anything other than a stop dot or a floating dot in that head box is over confirming. You are voluntarily giving up time to your adversary or the match for no more information that's going to make you more successful or more accurate, right? This happens a lot in law enforcement training because we don't trust ourselves that we see what we have, and we don't trust ourselves to act right away. What I find usually is the longer you wait with max information, the more likely you are to make mistakes. So once I see the amount of information that I need to be accountable, I'm just going to press the trigger. So we're going to break this apart into 3 different iterations. I'm going to engage each target separately. For this, just to talk about confirmation levels, and we'll just shoot the open target, entering in at a flash of color. The second target we'll take at a streak, and the third target we'll take at a stop dot. We'll be firing 2 rounds per target and making sure that we're maintaining 100% accountability. Now, if you find yourself during these iterations making mistakes, hitting no shoots, that's okay. This is not real life. This is training, right? The only way we're going to be able to develop this level of skill to be able to use in real life is by putting in the work here. So if you start shooting the more complex targets and it's very difficult for you, don't slow down, right? Force yourself to live in that uncomfortable spot. As long as you're able to process what is happening and tie cause and effect, that is good. You're going to make mistakes. Part of this process is making mistakes. Nobody has ever accomplished a high level of shooting without making a ton of mistakes. If you're constantly getting better, you're going to constantly be making mistakes. The difference is that you're tying cause and effect and you're understanding what's actually happening in the gun and what you need to teach yourself to do to be successful. For this first iteration, I'm going to draw the gun and I'm going to shoot 2 rounds at the A zone from 5 yards. It's a close target. It's an open target. It should not require a lot of information because it's not a very difficult target, and I'm in close proximity to it. So I should be able to shoot that very aggressively and still maintain 100% accountability. Now, one thing, I'm going to use a pack timer to initiate the sequence, all right? What I don't want you doing at this point in time is worrying too much about what the timer says. I want you paying attention to what you visually see. There's a lot of contributing factors that could make a gun enter into a different conformation level and have the time not reflect what you would think it'd be. An example of this, if I have an inefficient draw, right, I might be shooting at at the lowest conformation of a back plate because I just don't have the mechanics worked out, where a high level shooter could be shooting faster than you, but be at max conformation because they're very efficient in their mechanics and their index to get the gun to plant right away. So the timer can be a little bit misleading, especially early on in your process. So don't worry about the timer. Use the timer to initiate the sequence, but don't get too crazy about what the time is telling you. I want you just to pay attention to the visual cues. As you get developed in this process, we can start looking at the timer for more information to help us and assist us in holding us accountable. But right now, I think it's counterproductive to dive too deep into that. So we'll start with this target here, 5 yards, open target. All right, so we have 2 accountable rounds in the A zone, just waiting for a color streak. We'll do a couple of them for you just to give you some reference. That's a first round of an 85, and that is 17. So I'm gonna pick that up a little bit. All right, there we go. That's 2 rounds at a 93, or I'm sorry, 97. That's giving us a first round of an 80 and a 17 split, still accountable. Keys here is I'm just waiting for that flash of color, and then I'm making sure I don't violate any of the shooting principles, picking a small spot, getting the gun to re-index back quickly so I can shoot that follow-up round like we learned in the doubles. All right, so that was just flash of color, entering the target with a flash of color, and then obviously the follow-up shot is going to be a streak. Because you're not going to split the gun hard enough to have it be a flash of color. All right, second target, we'll move over here. Now I'm going to enter into a streak. I'm going to wait for a streak in the available A zone, and then I will follow up with another streaking dot. So 2 streaking dots from the draw. All right, so that gives us 114 first shot. 29 split with 2 alphas there, 1 on the line break. We'll pick that up a little bit more, see if I can get that gun there sooner so I can apply the same conformation level, but have a faster time. So I'll increase some hand speed. There we go, 2 nice alphas. That gives me a first shot of a 110 and a split of a 20-25. So that's pretty appropriate. With 2 nice centered up alphas right there. Now we're going to step up or step over to the head box. All right, so now I'm going to draw the gun. Your index is going to be very important here. So if I draw the gun and the gun doesn't land right in the head box, that's going to require some cleanup work. I'm trying to minimize the cleanup work that I have to do so I can start shooting sooner. So even if I draw the gun and the dot stops, but it stops to the left or the right of it or above it, I'm gonna have to move that dot over, right? So this is where overdeveloping your index is totally gonna assist you in shooting especially more difficult targets, because you're going to get to shoot sooner if that dot presents exactly where you want to be. All right, so we'll do that. I'll really pick a small spot. All right. So what that looks like is 2 stop dots. First round was a 133, and that split was of a 0.45. All right. I think I waited a little bit too long on that. I'm going to shoot that again and try to clean that up a little bit. All right. That's a little bit better. That's a 125 and a 40-40 split in the head box. All right. So now we're going to talk about blending these arrays together. All right. So when we come back, we'll hit you with that. All right, guys. Now that we have a general understanding of conformation levels and how to apply them to the difficulty of the target and the distance, we're now going to work on blending these arrays together, also while using conformation levels, right? Everything that you're seeing throughout this series is building on itself, right? We still need to have the foundation of a durable, consistent grip to make this successful. We need to be able to have a good refined index so we can start shooting sooner and apply the appropriate conformation level to the difficulties of the targets. And then now we're going to add another layer of how do I merge this array of targets, these 3 targets together that get progressively harder, while also applying the associated conformation level to be successful. And it starts with a trigger break exit. All right. So a trigger break exit is a physical cue that we get from the gun that tells us to leave the small spot on our target that we're shooting and go to the next small spot. So by now, if you've been working on all this stuff, you should see how valuable it is to get the gun to re-index back quickly by picking a small spot. But we don't want to hang out there when we're trying to blend targets together. So when I have my small spot here, no matter how many rounds I'm shooting, say I'm shooting 6 rounds on the 6th trigger press, as soon as I have that physical press, as the gun is firing and recoiling, I am leaving this target visually and visually reconnecting my eyes to the next target that I want to shoot. That is going to create a home base for that gun to re-index to cleanly. All right, this is imperative that you do that. If I'm waiting for the gun to come back to here, right, then I have to physically move the gun over to that spot. And then if my eyes aren't ahead of the gun, it's just going to kind of be like a snowball of shit. All right, so I want to use that recoil, that momentum from the gun, to redirect itself to the next target. And that cue, like we just talked about, is the trigger break exit. So we'll break this down to show you guys how to do this, because this is very visually demanding. And this is going to be the key to get that trigger break exit and that bump over to the next target. So all I'm going to have you do is you'll be at the same distances. Put yourself in a spot where you can see all 3 targets at 5, 10, and 15. And I'm just going to have you aim in. So we'll take the draw stroke out of it now. Have you aim in at the front target. And then I want you to press the trigger, firing a round. As soon as you press that trigger, don't wait to see the round hit the A zone. Just trust that you did and move your eyes to the next target and watch and see how that gun just glides and lands right into the next A zone. If it doesn't, it's most likely because you didn't pick a small enough spot or you were trying to bully the gun over there. You're going to see with pistols, you don't really need to bully the gun. If you just look to the next spot at the correct time, the gun in recoil will float over with your eyes. So it'll look like this. Do a couple of these, I'll reset. All right. Now what I'm grading, because obviously the shooting is not very difficult here, what I'm grading is how does that dot arrive to the next target? Is it arriving precisely to where my eyes are connected, or is it kind of just having freedom to go anywhere it wants in brown, right? That's going to be about driving that index, over developing that index, picking a small spot, letting the eyes be ahead of the gun so we can get it to fall right there precisely. If it falls right there precisely, that's going to allow us to start shooting right away. And that's what we're looking for to keep this whole entire shot string going together. All right. So once we do a couple of them, we'll do one and then bump the gun, do that several times, get a feel for that dot landing. Then you'll shoot 1, 1, and bump to the head box. All right, the head box, you're really gonna have to make sure you pick a small spot there so the gun indexes correctly so you can start shooting right away. Yes, we're gonna be using more confirmation. You're gonna be using a stop dot, but if the dot doesn't stop there, then I have to make a correction. That's wasting time. I don't wanna do that, all right? It'll look like this. So I'm gonna go 1, 1, and I'm gonna bump to the third target, but I'm not shooting it. I'm just assessing how it arrives there. All right, that's looking good. Now I'm going to shoot that third target. Still not doing from the draw yet, right? Just getting my eyes trained to pick small spots and trust that the gun's going to be there when I need it to be. So now we're gonna go down, we'll check the accuracy for accountability, right? 5-yard target, obviously aimed in, no issues. 10-yard target. As soon as I see that streaking confirmation, right? Pressing the trigger, no problems. All right. This was pretty good. The dot was landing right where I wanted my eyes, so I'm collecting some of these alphas there. That's not the goal. It's nice, but I'm just trying to get my eyes to the middle here and press the trigger without disrupting the sights. All right, so good accuracy there, right? Once we get a feel for that, now we got to layer it a little bit more, all right? We have to now add multiple rounds of this, right? It's easy to press the trigger once and collect points like that. Now, can I get the gun to re-index back to those areas the same way, applying multiple confirmation levels, asking myself to stay more disciplined in my grip and my vision, and putting it all together while changing 3 different confirmation levels, right? That will be the next layer here. Still focusing on, as well, the trigger break exit at the right time. So instead of exiting on the first trigger press, it's gonna be the second one. All right, so now we're gonna get back into this, and we're just gonna execute from the same manner. We're not putting the draw stroke in yet. We're still getting our eyes to trust everything that we need, and we're just going to start shooting 2, but still applying the appropriate confirmation levels, but from aimed in. All right, it'll look like this. All right, you can hear a cadence difference, right? It's not actually a cadence. What it is you're seeing a difference in time or tempo due to the visual confirmation that I need to maintain accountability. So I'm not slowing down just to slow down. The more difficult targets at the farther distances require me to see more. If I need to see more, that obviously is going to have a time penalty. So confirmation levels with shooting is really you managing time and information. So we'll pick that up a little bit more and just see what we can do. All right, looking good. Now we're gonna add the draw stroke in. So doing the exact same thing, just gonna put the draw stroke back into it. Put yourself in a spot where you can see all the targets, and then we'll come back to the timer to initiate us. All right, all accountable there at a 266, right? So you can hear the throttle changes, but that's due to the visual confirmation levels. Seeing as much as I need to see, but no more than I don't see, and then making sure I'm accountable throughout this shot string, right? Picking those small spots, letting the gun re-index, all right? We're gonna tape this up, and then I'm gonna give you guys another layer for this to really test if you understand the foundation that we're working on. All right, guys, once you're getting comfortable with the trigger break exits and the blendings and applying the associated confirmation levels, you want to start layering it even more to make it a little bit more challenging. So another layer that I like to add is I like to open up with a bill drill. A bill drill is 6 rounds. So we're going to draw the gun. We're going to fire 6 rounds to that 5-yard target. The reason why we're going to do that is that's going to test our discipline. If we can shoot very fast and aggressive, not tense up, not get trigger freeze, not pressure change, and then still have the discipline, the trigger break exit on that 6th round and then apply the associated confirmation level. So there's a lot going on here, and that bill drill is really just gonna throttle you up and test if you have the ability to just stay disciplined, stay consistent and durable in your grip, and pick small spots and apply the trigger brake exit correctly. All right, so this will look like this. All right, that's looking decent at a 293. We got some 2 Charlies in the middle high. That's just my eyes came across, and that just happened to where they were, and I saw the streak right above the A zone. So the correction there is I got to be a little bit more disciplined to make sure that I drive my eyes to the correct spot, not just the middle of the available brown, right? I want to force myself to shoot max points on this. I got sloppy with the vision, and I drove my eyes to the middle of that available hit zone, but it's right above the A zone, right? So that's not what I want. I took 2 Charlies. I lost 4 points there for really nothing. Shouldn't happen, right? But this is training, and I'll make that visual connection. I did take 2 alphas in the credit card though, so that'll kind of make up for it. So we're gonna give that another run, guys. I'm gonna make the visual correction, none of which is gonna be slowing down, right? I'm actually gonna try to throttle that up and shoot this open one in the front a little bit sooner. That was an 83 first round. I'm gonna try to cut a little bit off that. And then I'm gonna just make sure that I get my eyes to the middle, and then hopefully I can do the same thing on the head box. There we go, not bad. So that was actually a little bit slower. So I opened up with an 81, so I beat that. Slowed down in the transition on the middle one there. All right, so 81 opening, shooting teens, splits ranging from 16s and 17s. Transition, that's where I lost the time there on a 37 with a 33. 36 to the back target transition and round, and then a 38 follow-up. So that middle one, I dialed down a little bit, or I saw more, right? And since I saw more, I lost a little bit of time there, which gave my overall time for the 10 rounds, right? 6, 7, 8, 9, yep, for the 10 rounds of a 309. All right, so I was a little bit slower, but I took better points. If we put it in hit factor math, we'd have to look at it. I'm not good at math. We're not good at math here. But that's what we're looking to do, guys, right? This is us pushing ourselves. I'm not trying to do anything that's comfortable. I'm trying to push every target at the maximum of my capability. And then when I make a mistake, I'm assessing why I felt that happened, tying cause and effect, right? So if the open target in the front here is not causing me any issues, I'm just gonna keep trying to blaze that down, right? The middle target, yep, man, I need to get my eyes to the right spot to collect those points like I didn't do on the first one. Made that correction. I sacrificed a little bit of time. And then for the head box, I got, looks like 2 Charlies in the head box. But the goal for the head box is just to put them in there. First one, it kind of worked out for me that it was alphas. But nonetheless, I'm not trying to shoot for that credit card at all. I'm just trying to put the dot in the middle of the available shooting space and to shoot that aggressive as I can. All right, got a 326. All alphas here. 2 alphas there. And 2 kissing Charlies, right? So we can pick that up a little bit, right? I can try to apply less confirmation to the individual targets. I could try to shoot a color, just a flash of color in the middle. And then I could try to pick that up and try to shoot that on a streak in the head box, right? And just see how much I really need to see to hit those desired hit zones at those distances, right? If I'm having trouble with it, I need to tie cause and effect of, hey man, is that just not enough information for 15 yards for a 6x6 target? Or is that lack of information causing me to change stuff in the shooting, right? This is how we train. This is what training should look like. And then real life, we will execute whatever we need to be accountable. But I need to have that surplus of skill ready for whatever that threat is. And then I'm just pleasantly happy when it's a low-level adversary. All right, guys, Now that we have a basic understanding of conformation levels and blending, we're going to switch over to this drill called Designated Target Drill from Kwanzaa Kim. This is probably my favorite drill for static transitions and vision. So what we have here is we have a centerpiece of A-zone steel. That's going to be our designated target. All right, so on the draw, on the buzzer, I'm going to have to engage the steel first. Then I'm going to transition to any target that I feel, shoot that with 2 rounds, and then come back to the steel with 1 round every time. So if I draw, it'll be steel, open target 2 rounds, back to steel, partial 2 rounds, back to steel, partial head box 2 rounds, back to steel, open target 2 rounds, back to steel. And what we're looking for is we're looking to get in and out of these targets on that trigger break exit. So it's send it, know that you have what you need, and get off to the next target, which will always be your designated target back. And then I quickly get off the designated target and get to the next array. So we'll work this some, and you can switch it up with any order. You can work from right to left to right, back to front, whatever you want to do, just to switch it up for yourself, test your brain, test your vision, doing all different types of orders. So we'll do this a couple different ways for you guys. You can see how it works. Still keep in mind, we are still applying the appropriate conformation level for the difficulty of the target and the distance. But once I'm done with it, like I said, on the trigger break, I'm getting out of there. So when I shoot that head box, which is 15 yards, yeah, I'm gonna use more information, stop dot, but on that second trigger press, boom, I'm getting out of it right back to my designated target, which is the steel, and then I'm coming out of that and going to something else. All right. 1 on steel, 2 on everything else. All right. You could see the visual changes, right? The control target or the designated target is an A-zone steel, right? So it takes a little bit more visual discipline, but I need to get the gun right to it immediately off that trigger break. I'm giving it the visual confirmation it needs, and then I'm getting out of there. These closer open targets, right? That one's probably 10, this one's probably 7, right? They're easy. You can see I'm choosing flash sight picture, right? So just a color from my reticle in the A-zone, and I'm sending it, right? Then coming right back to the designated target, which is the A-zone, takes a little bit more information, giving it what it needs there, and then getting ready right back out to whatever target I'm going to. So we'll switch it up another way. We'll go left to right now. All right, so didn't get my eyes to the steel on that last one. That bullet went right off to the right edge. That was just a little sloppy vision coming off this front open target, just being sloppy to get my eyes back there. Looked too big, didn't pick a small spot in the steel. The gun landed right to the left of it, to the right of it, and I just pressed the trigger like a bonehead, made it up, right? So if you miss the designated target at any point, you have to hit it before you move on, all right? We'll do it another way now. I'll go back to front. All right, something like that. You guys can switch this up at all different types of variations. Spread the targets 25, 30 yards, whatever you want. Have something up close, real nasty. Your imagination is your limitation, right? But this is a great way, especially if you video this, you can see how quickly you're coming in and out of these targets and how precisely and how long it's taking you to engage something. And obviously we have our hits to check everything out and make sure we're being accountable, right? I got 1, 2, 3 Charlies in the targets, and no, I'm sorry, 4 Charlies, 1 in the head box there. All right, so not too bad. Need a little bit more work. It's kind of funny with some of these open targets here, these 2 open targets. I got 2 Charlies, and in the head box control target there, I only have 1 Charlie, right? So what does that tell you? I'm giving the more difficult targets the respect they deserve, and then on these open targets, I'm just getting a little sloppy with picking these small spots and grabbing a Charlie, right? Like that shouldn't happen. So I need to pay attention to that. So like on a 7 and a 10 yard target, I got one Charlie on each out of all those runs together. That should not happen. On my back targets, I got 2 Charlies on, or 1 Charlie here and 1 Charlie there. So I have the same ratio on difficult targets at farther distances, 15 yards, as I do a 7 and 10 yard open target, right? That should tell you something, that I'm being too visually sloppy on these open targets. I'm disrespecting them. Yes, I'm using the appropriate confirmation, but the appropriate confirmation needs to be led by picking small spots to get the gun to index cleanly there and be there, right? Just looking a little bit too big, and I'm starting to get some micro Charlies. They're not huge, but nonetheless, it's a Charlie, right? And it's incorrect and it's not what I'm looking for. So I need to pay attention to that, right? And I could kind of see that throughout the shooting that I was doing that. I cleaned it up on the majority of the runs, but nonetheless, they are there. So we'll give you a look at these targets. You can see what all that produced for the entire runs. Here's that one Charlie that we were talking about on that was probably a 7 yard or so target, 7, 8 yards. Over here, same thing, open target. This is just not picking a small spot and just not stopping the gun, right? Just letting it travel a little too sloppy there. Head box down here, right? The most difficult target, probably 15-ish, maybe a little more yards. And we got the majority of them in the credit card. And then obviously one low one that was a little danger close there. This is bad, I'm not gonna lie. Good shit here. This is just being visually not disciplined in the second round, right? So that's me exiting visually off the first trigger press, right? So I came in, got the confirmation I need, press. Now I'm starting to leave this target or getting sucked into the dot, and boom, I'm starting to lose that accuracy. That's what that kind of tells me there. Probably staring at the dot a little bit when I'm shooting that because I'm focused on getting out of this and getting back to the next problem, but I need to finish this problem appropriately and exit on the second trigger press, right? And there was something that probably happened there prior to that trigger press, either staring at the dot or just trying to leave it too soon and just taking one side picture and pressing the trigger twice. And then obviously we have our control, right? So this is a great drill from Kwanzaa Kim. This is something that if you're having trouble with picking small spots and transitioning effectively on the trigger break exit, this is what I would work, right? If you wanted to start with open targets, you could start with open targets. I probably wouldn't. I would make it a little bit more difficult, have some stuff where you have to definitely apply some different confirmation levels to really kind of force that, and then test. Even though on this head box I'm shooting, you know, stop dots to get those hits, I'm still throttling out of that target, right? Visually and physically, the same way I am off an open target, right? Because on that trigger break, whether it's a controlled target or something difficult or an open target, the exit should be the same level of aggression of driving my eyes back to my designated target. All right, definitely check this drill out, guys. We got one more for you in blending. Let me load up some mags and we'll give you that. All right, guys, so now we're gonna work on another blending exercise. What you'll see, it's a little bit different. We have 3 open targets, all at the same, roughly the same spread, and at the same distance. Will be 5 yards from these targets. So easy shooting. But with that easy shooting, to maximize points divided by time, we want to make sure we're applying maximum aggression. So the same visual cues that I'm looking at entering into one target is what I should be continuing across the board. So this drill is very simple in the manner of shooting skill, but where it gets really difficult is if you're really running the gun blazing fast like you should be. It's very challenging visually to get your eyes ahead of the gun and keep in the moving so you can keep running those teen splits and teen transitions. What you're gonna see if I do this efficiently and correctly, you're gonna see that my transitions and splits are roughly 100th or the same, and I should be keeping that same tempo across the board. But that is not me shooting in a cadence or a rhythm. This is me simply applying the exact same visual cues precisely on demand at every exit and entry into that target. All right, so to stage this, to get you guys comfortable,